zooming out, how far did you end up getting with your education?
I did a great job. I got a high school diploma.
And care to share the name of the high school you attended back in those days?
It was an alternative school for Reynoldsburg High School called Everest High School.
For those in the audience getting to know you for the very first time, care to share where you were born?
Jackson, Michigan.
And care to share where you were raised as well?
Columbus, Ohio.
And does it get any more specific than that? Like a particular part of Columbus, for example?
The far east side of Columbus.
And what ages were you raised in Columbus for, approximately?
Well, from 7th grade to about when I was 23 years old, out of high school, my adulthood.
And do you still reside in Columbus today?
No, I live in Atlanta.
And care to share the reason for the different moves? First from Jackson to Columbus, and then eventually Atlanta.
Well, from Jackson to Columbus, my dad had found a new job, and he was just packed up his family and said, let's go. And then from Columbus to Atlanta is career-wise.
And care to share what that career is?
My career, I'm an artist, mainstream inspirational artist, quality control, Capitol Records, encouragement music.
And do you remember what age that was in your life when you make that decision to move to Atlanta?
I was 25, well, 24, and then I turned 25 in Atlanta.
And care to share your current age at this point?
26.
And your birthday while you're at it, the month and the day perhaps?
9/11/97.
Now, circumstances could be different for everyone, but can you give the audience 5 tips on moving to Atlanta?
Stay focused, stay dedicated in your career, eat healthy, have nice friend groups. Where I'm at?
4.
4.
One more if you got one more, and if not, that's okay too.
Stay fly. You never know what's gonna pop off. Gotta stay fly.
Any further explanation of any of these tips or any additional tips moving to Atlanta?
Chase your dreams. For sure.
Now, let's rewind here. What was that really like growing up in Jackson or Columbus for you?
Jackson, we grew up in poverty, so it was hard, you know, getting teased as a young kid in class, you know, having to go through the struggles of not having much, you know what I'm saying, and just like having family members that just really was down bad on drugs and stuff like that. It was a bad experience as a youngin' trying to come up. But you know, that turned around when my dad moved to Columbus, Ohio. It got a little better because he got a better job, so he was able to provide a little bit more. But one thing about my dad is he always did what he could do, for sure.
And what was that like in Columbus for you during that time?
Columbus, we still struggled a little bit, but it was like, that's when I started finding my own way, started finding multiple streams of income myself, you know what I'm saying? I dove in the streets and then, you know, I had a couple little jobs, but, you know, them ain't really work out. I was always entrepreneur-minded, really.
And where do you think that stemmed from?
It's a God-given gift, if you ask me.
Okay, now want to ask you a few more details about some of these descriptions you've presented. Okay, when it came to Jackson, Michigan, was it a particular part of Jackson for you?
Southside.
And for those that aren't familiar with Jackson, Michigan, but maybe familiar with Detroit, for example, how far of a distance is that?
45 minutes to an hour.
And what about Flint as well?
Flint is an hour.
Now, in regards to poverty, what do you think was your worst dealings of poverty? What was the bottom point of poverty that you experienced back in those days?
Well, not having heat, the lights cutting off, and not really having too many clothes, having to wear hand-me-downs and stuff like that. Not really having that much food and stuff like that. Just eating what my mom could afford and my dad could afford at the time. You know, I had both parents, but we struggled still. So, yeah, like.
You mentioned some drug issues
For sure.
in regards to your family members. Was this mother's side, father's side?
Both sides.
And what kind of drugs back then?
Crack cocaine on my dad's side, really. And it was, on my mom's side, it really wasn't, I couldn't say drugs, but it was heavy alcoholism.
Which is still a drug.
Yeah.
In a sense. Now, when it comes to those elements like alcoholism or being addicted to crack cocaine, things of that nature, did some of these family members, were they able to overcome those hindrances back then?
I had a couple aunties on my dad's side that overcame them, for sure. And on my mom's side, as far as alcoholism, a lot of people came through. It's just my granddaddy didn't make it. I ain't never met my granddaddy. That was my mom's dad. He died from alcoholism, cirrhosis of the liver.
Do you remember what age that was in your life when that took place?
Shoot, I wasn't even born yet.
Now, moving forward in Columbus, you mentioned there was a few jobs that you undertook.
Most definitely.
Do you recall what jobs and what roles you had back in those days?
I always worked at a factory. So, like, I worked at Limited Brands, which was Abercrombie and Fitch's factory, and Bath and Body Works' factory. I was a picker, assembly line picker.
Now, you also mentioned God here.
Most definitely.
Do you follow a religion by any chance?
No, I'm just a believer in Christ.
And was that how you were raised or something you chose?
Definitely how I was raised, a foundation. I came back to the foundation that was planted inside me.
Care to shed some light on that?
My mother, she always prayed for us and put oil on us before we went to school. Always spoke life inside of us, you know what I'm saying? Just telling us how great we can be, you know what I'm saying? Telling us how God got us and he always got our back, and just always speaking scriptures, you know, before we go to sleep. Just always being that type of mother to put a faith foundation inside of us, for real.
And you mentioned that you strayed away from that and ended up coming back?
Most definitely.
Can you shed some light on that as well?
I was about like 14 years old, actually, and I just got tired of the ways and the things of the traditions that they would do in church. It was kind of not like godly, for real, because, you know, God is love. And, you know, religion and tradition is more like on some, you do what I say, man-made type of things. And it's kind of just like irked my nerves, really. Growing up in church, it hurt my parents' feelings, and I definitely got my feelings hurt in church as well. So I definitely stirred away.
And then when did you come back and why?
I came back in 2021 due to life conditions. You know what I'm saying? Like, God just started taking away the things that had me occupied in life at the time. And it broke me down to the ground to the point where I just surrendered and gave my life to him, really.
And was that easy or hard for you to do?
Man, it was a hard task. I'm not gonna lie to you, because the things that had me and the things that I was into, it was habitual. I had done it for years, and you know what I'm saying? I was comfortable with that. But you know, change is always uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Change is always uncomfortable. So like, it was very uncomfortable for me at the time.
Now, you may have mentioned this already throughout this portion of questions, but still going to ask you formally just in case you have a different answer.
Most
and
definitely.
If it is the same answer as previous before, we'll move forward. But
Okay.
The question that is to be asked is, zooming out, in regards to your upbringing, whether it was in Jackson or Columbus, what was the bottom point for you during your entire upbringing? What was your lowest point or most negative moment growing up for you?
Wow. Really just not having much. You know what I'm saying? As a child, just not having much tears down your confidence and how you think and move as a child. You know what I'm saying? Because like the world we grew up in is what everybody else thinks and what everybody else is saying at that moment. What is all marketed to us as children. So you know what I'm saying? So like when I'm hearing things like, oh, you know, you got to be fresh when you come to school. And we less fortunate. It's like, it's impossible. So it turned out my confidence as a youngin'. You know what I'm saying? That's my lowest point when I was younger.
Now, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
have some of these experiences that you endured during your childhood been something you sought any professional help over? Like a mental health professional of some sort, for example.
No, sir. I never went to, like, you talking about like a therapist or something like that?
Yes, that's an
Nah,
example.
I ain't never went to no therapist.
Why not? Some people do.
I mean, I'm not against it or nothing like that. It's just like, when I got saved by God, it's just like prayer started helping me. Prayer, and then, you know, talks with my mom. And then, like, you know, like, when we have family talks, we resolve a lot of issues by time. Because I just feel like, me personally, time is a healing drug. It heals everything. For real, for real.
Be that as it may,
Mm-hmm.
do you want any professional help with that?
I consider it, most definitely.
Now, how were you able to survive that upbringing in either Jackson or Columbus for you? Because there are some that don't make it.
Really, it was my mother's and father's prayer and strong faith, and just it's the togetherness, the unity, and family that just helped us stay together. Like, as we seen our mother and father like never give up, you know what I'm saying? They had one point where they had separated, but they came back together for us. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like they never showed us a breaking point. You know what I'm saying? Even when it was tough times, we stick together and we always went with each other. You know what I'm saying? So.
Now, what age was it when they split? What age was it in your life when they get back together?
It was all like the same year for real. It was just like a couple months where they were split, so it didn't take that long. But I think I can remember I was probably about like 9.
Now, there are some people who say things like, don't know if I'll make it to see the age of 18.
Most definitely.
Maybe 21, for example. Did you have any of these thoughts yourself growing up?
Heck yeah. And I ain't had those thoughts until like I started diving into the streets. And that was around like, well, I jumped off the porch in the streets when I was probably like 16, 17. For real, for real. Like, but I sold my first little batch of weed at like 14 though. So it was like, I wasn't considered off the porch or nothing like that, like gangbanging or nothing like that. But I say like 16, 17 is really when I start getting active outside in the streets.
Now, you've already shared the age you are currently at this point and have surpassed. Well, before I even say that, was there a numeric figure you didn't think you might quite see at some point?
Shoot.
Gave an example of 18 and 21, but was it even more specific than that for you?
25. Cause like that's the saying for real. You lucky if you make it to 25 in the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Now, you mentioned at this point you're 26.
Yeah.
What do you make of that outcome now that you are on the other side of that equation?
It's a blessing. And what I'm making of my outcome is I'm steady chasing my dreams. I'm not giving up on what the promises that was made to me from the Lord. You know what I'm saying? His promises was, you know, to give me a great hope and a great future and never to harm me. So that's what I stuck on and stood by, you know.
And what are your dreams as well, for context?
My dreams is really to like blow up as a mainstream artist. That was my first dream since I was a kid. But now it was really just to like heal the earth, bring positivity to the earth and, you know, help people out as much as I can in the ways that I can do it.
Knowing what you know now,
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of that coin, hypothetically speaking, what would you have said to your younger self back then?
Everything is gonna be okay because everything happened for a reason.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, what was the top point for you during your upbringing in either Jackson or Columbus? What was your highest point or most positive moment growing up in either area for you?
Both areas was really like Christmas time. Christmas time where the gifts was flowing. We get to wear our back to school outfits when I was a youngin'. And then, you know, up to Ohio, really like the positive times was just me just like graduating from high school, things like that. And everybody coming together for graduation day and stuff like that. And we had a graduation party. They celebrated me and things of that nature. So it was just a blessing to me, really.
Now, previously you mentioned the high school you graduated
Most
from.
definitely.
And that you did get your high school diploma, but was there any thought on furthering your education after that?
No, sir. I just really, my personal opinion, I didn't like school. And I just feel like school was a ripoff to me. You know what I'm saying? And I always feel like I'm gonna be a rapper. And I'm gonna blow up being a rapper. That's just what it was.
What did you feel like was a ripoff?
Really just like hearing everybody talking about how much they gotta pay back to college. Like, I'm like, why everybody gotta pay all this money? I'm cool. I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm cool on that. I was already owing hospital bills from getting shot and all type of stuff around that time. I'm cool. I ain't had no insurance.
Anything else you want to mention about your upbringing or question you weren't asked? People want to know about that.
No.